years. And we are so grateful, Dustin, for you joining us today. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, James.
So just to kick us off, Dustin, just tell us a little bit more about yourself, how God led you to Messiah, Nebraska. You said you're from Minnesota originally. So I love Minnesota, had family that spent time there during college. So it was kind of like a second home for me for a little while. But tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to Messiah, a little bit more about your role at the church.
Sure. I grew up on a farm in Southwest Minnesota, loved growing up on the farm, but I knew early on farming, not so much for me. But I was, grew up in a Christian home, and probably in high school at some point around my junior year, I just knew I felt called to do something related to God's work, kingdom work. And I did not think I would be going to college in Nebraska, but ended up looking at Concordia University in Seward. And the moment I stepped on campus, I just knew like this is where God wanted me to be. And at that time, wasn't really thinking pastoral ministry, even though I had people say, you should really be a pastor. I was thinking more education and teaching, and that was my focus. And then ended up meeting my wife, Trudy. She was also at Concordia. And I just have to say, so for all of our Nebraska listeners too, don't take offense to this, but when I left Minnesota to come to Nebraska, I vowed 3 things. One, never root for the Nebraska Huskers. And really, it was really 2 things. And then don't listen to country music. Those were the 2 main ones.
I'm with you on the second one.
But then I met my wife, Trudy, who's a farm girl from Nebraska. And of course, big Huskers fan, love country music. And so I realized, okay, how serious am I about these things? So obviously we've been married for 28 years now. So, and we've served in a number of different places. So I was a teacher first.
Okay.
And I always like to tell people, this is one of those unique things you kind of share about yourself. But I was a kindergarten teacher. And I joke with people, but there's a little bit of seriousness to it. At that time, kindergarten was really snack time, playtime, nap time. I'm like, life just doesn't get any better than those 2 things. So
that's awesome.
But one of our calls then was teaching in Juneau, Alaska, of all places. And beautiful place. I always tell people, great place to visit, just don't want to live there necessarily. It's just a long ways from everybody else, but God used that to help me see that his call was for teaching, but more than that, pastoral ministry. And so I ended up going to the seminary, and then after being in a few places such as Phoenix and the Denver area, God really answered a call to bring us closer to family, both family here in Nebraska and closer to my family in Minnesota. And that was especially important as our kids were born. So we have 4 kids, 3 girls, and a boy, Lincoln, my male support in a house full of girls. So it's, but love being a dad. And honestly, I would say that's what was such a good fit for then when Messiah reached out and said that they were looking for an associate pastor and really focusing on discipleship and family ministry. Those are some of my passions. Working with couples preparing to get married, working with marriages, believing that strong, healthy marriages make for strong, healthy families, which make for strong, healthy communities. And we have here at Messiah church and school. So we have an early childhood center, and then we have elementary through 5th grade. And so my background in teaching, my wife's a teacher too. She teaches 2nd grade here at Messiah. It was such a good fit for us. And the 3 P's is what I talk about. The person that God has been making me to be, the plan just kind of for life, family, ministry, all of those things. And then the place. This is, I would say, the first time that all 3 of those have really lined up for us. And so I've been here going on year 8 now, and it's just such a good fit.
That's awesome. I mean, I see that you're wearing red under your jacket.
I am wearing red. We even had a dog named Husker. We have the flag that goes out on Saturdays. So yeah.
So Trudy, she converted you. You're a Husker.
She did. Yeah. I am. And I listen to country music too. So
yeah, I still don't, but Well, that's all. I mean, that's awesome. I love hearing people's stories, especially as they, God moves them around the country. So we're so happy you're here in Lincoln and it's your home. So tell us about Messiah. I mean, I know a lot, or at least a little bit, working here at CH. Our listeners don't. So tell us about Messiah Lutheran, your vision, your mission. We'll get into kind of what God's been doing lately, but just kind of give us an overview of who Messiah is.
Sure. So our mission comes right out of the scriptures, from what Jesus states as being really the great command, and then also the great commission. And so the great command, when Jesus says, look, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, mind, love your neighbor as yourself.
Hmm.
And then the great commission is when Jesus says, I want you to go. I want you to go out into your communities. I want you to go out into the world, make disciples. And then he gives the promise, I'm going to be with you.
Yep.
So love God, love others, share Christ, and looking for
Hmm.
the opportunities to do that. I love being in a position where I get to come alongside of all ages, adults, youth, children, families, and really helping them see who God has made them to be and their unique callings, and then equipping them to just be the church wherever God has placed them. And so what I love about Messiah, we just a couple years ago celebrated our 30th anniversary. So
Hmm.
Messiah started as a church plant, really started with the school, and then the church kind of grew out of that.
Oh, interesting.
And what's interesting is just seeing that that's where so much of our growth continues to come to.
Yeah.
Uh, the focus here all along has been really on families, and then being a family, being very relational. And so I'm just so thankful again, like I said, the person, the plan, the place. I feel
Yeah.
like all those things that have landed up, align for us
Yep.
here. And if I wasn't serving as a pastor, I'm like, Messiah is a church that I would want to be a part of
Sure.
too. So
I love that. And I love, the mission, love God, love people, share Christ. Like, it's so simple. And I think it can be really tempting to complicate that. And it's like, this is, Jesus, following Jesus is hard, but
yeah,
it's simple. It's not rocket science. And so I love that.
I share that with others too. I really believe we make life complicated enough.
Yep.
The brokenness in the world, it complicates things enough. I believe Jesus came to simplify things,
Yeah.
and that's why I love that he did. Like he's like, I'm just going to break this down. There's
Yep.
two things, and the second just flows out of the first. Love God, and then
Mm-hmm.
love the others in your life. And while you're doing that, just look for opportunities to share about me. And so that's what we do.
I love it. Now, what's going on at Messiah right now? What excites you about that, and what excites you about kind of what God's, or at least what you think God's going to be doing here in the future?
Yeah, so I shared a little bit about the school, and that's one of the places where I just really see God at work. Messiah is not just a church and a school. It's one ministry
Yeah.
that we have, and we're just experiencing growth in so many ways. And what I love is, and I just hear story after story about how we're raising up these children, and these children are becoming disciples, followers of Jesus. But then a
Yep.
lot of these kids are going home, and these kids, it's kind of a reversal sort of thing,
Mm.
are discipling mom and dad in some ways.
Yeah.
Um, and then we're connecting with these families, but we're big believers. I believe that parents are meant to be the number one faith sharers and shapers in the
Yep.
lives of their kids. And so that's one of the things we're passionate about trying to speak into and encourage and equip. And we're just seeing more and more of that being lived out. And then this whole
Love it.
idea, this mindset that we are a church, we're a family, we're a community, but we're also called to serve the community, the greater, larger community that we're
Yep.
a part of.
Yep.
And one of the things that I see God doing is he's really growing us in stepping out beyond just the walls here at Messiah,
Mm-hmm.
and into our community, and just a number of opportunities to do that. And really part of that is what has kind of brought us together too.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll talk about stuff with Christian Heritage here in a minute, but just what have you guys been doing for families in the community? I mean, when we got together initially, I mean, we heard about tons of things that you guys were doing, but what have been some of those initiatives? And then really along with that, what have you learned as you guys have engaged with people in the community here in Lincoln?
So one of the things that we're just getting ready for here as we get closer to Thanksgiving and then Christmas is we have an angel tree. So we have a tree that sits in the Great Hall at the church, and everyone gets to see it as they come and go. And then the ornaments on the tree are ornaments that come from kids and families throughout the community that we have opportunity to partner with through organizations, ministries like Christian Heritage, some of our schools in the community where maybe there's some greater needs there
Yep.
too. And that's just one, simple way that we're able to do that. A ministry that really caught my attention when I was praying about, God, is this a place you want us to be and to serve as we, we're looking to uproot our family and make that move. And I heard about the ministry Home in a Box. And we have just down the street several storage units. And in those storage units, we have furniture and dishes and just anything you would need to really start a home. And we then have others, as the story has kind of grown, others have learned, we'll get contacted about someone, maybe it's a single mom and she is in need of just kind of a new start with her kids. She's found a place to live, but she really they don't have anything.
Yep.
So we provide the furniture. We provide, just we set up the kitchen. We have a business in
Amazing.
town we partner with. They provide new beds for them too. We provide food. We come alongside of them, and we just help them to get a fresh start. And so, again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just some of these simple things that we take for granted. And what I've learned is the need to just kind of, instead of asking God to say, hey, God, can you come bless us in this initiative? To just step back first and see where God is already at work, what he's doing, where the needs are, and where we could come alongside of that.
I love that. So Home in a Box, did Messiah create that? Is that a bigger thing? I mean, I've heard you guys talk about it.
Yeah, no, Messiah created that.
Okay.
So it just started here really with just a group of members of the church who identified the need, and they're like,
That's
what
cool.
can we do? And it started small, and it's just grown community wide too, where others just they know of this, and as they come up with a need, they're like, hey, we know Messiah has this thing called Home in a Box. We need to put you in touch with them.
That's awesome. Do other churches know that you guys do this?
We could definitely get the word out more.
Yeah. We're going to
So
try to help you with that. I love
thank
that.
you.
Now, when you guys got connected to us, we reached out to you about the possibility of partnering together with our Families Together program. What made you say yes to a meeting? Because I know, be honest, like pastors get a lot of emails. You guys get a lot of requests. What made you say yes to just meeting with us?
Well, first of all, we had experience of just knowing about Christian Heritage through other members too who have, and the other pastor I serve alongside with here, Pastor John, uh, knowing just the work and ministry of Christian Heritage, and just so thankful for that. And so with that, just knowing like, okay, yeah, we trust, right? We trust what work is being done. And when I heard just a little bit, even just the name Families Together, right? It was enough to intrigue me. Okay, what is this all about?
Sure.
And that's where we sat down and had a cup of coffee and began to hear more about that. I don't know if you guys use the word, but I keep using the word. To me, it's a ministry. That's
ministry.
how I see it.
Yep.
And so hearing more about what you were looking to do to start to grow into this, the more I heard, the more I realized like, wow, this is Messiah. Sounds like us. And so how can we come alongside of what you're doing and help tell the story and help allow others to be a part of that?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, you were at our banquet. For those who weren't there, Dustin was at our banquet, and you said there, like, I know you call it a program, but it's a ministry. And it is. It really is a ministry. It's not what we're trying to do is just like with Home in a Box, it's really just, we're trying to provide something, but we're trying to make connections. And that's what it's really about. It's about relationship connection with people who need relationships. They need friends, they need family, they need people they can trust and love. And obviously we knew that aligned, or we thought that aligned with your heart.
Yes.
And I'm glad you guys, took us up on that initial meeting. So that kind of leads to the big topic I want to spend the rest of our time on, is talk about partnership. Not just with partnership with Christian Heritage. Of course, that's important. And we love that you guys partner with us, but we really want to help the church. I mean, we want to help churches learn how to do partnerships well. One way we do that is trying to model it ourselves. We're not perfect. We fail. Things drop through the cracks. It happens all the time. But I'd like to just start by asking, what makes for a great partnership? You've been in ministry for a long time. What do you think about when you're kind of evaluating a partnership to advance the work of the gospel?
Yeah, that's a great question. Stepping back from that a moment. So just when it comes to partnering, this is something that God has just put on my heart over years of life and ministry. And there's 3 words that have kind of become my personal almost vision in statement in my life and in my ministry. And this is one of the things that aligns so well at Messiah. The first is creative. The second is relational. And you've touched on that word a few times. And then partnering. And it dawned on me at one time, I'm like, wow, that speaks to the character of God. Like, God is creator. God is all about relationships, bringing us back into relationship with him. And he is all about partnering. And so I realized, if God's about these things, then maybe we should be about these things too. And so as I look at partnering, I touched on this a little bit ago, but I've noticed at times in my life, I try to, and I don't realize I'm doing it, but I end up getting out maybe ahead of what God is trying to do. And I'm like, hey, God, can you come and bless me with what I'm doing here? I realized that maybe the healthier thing to do is step back for a moment, look and see where God is already at work. Because as much as, especially within the church in ministry, where we want to be all things to everyone and where we want to meet every need that is out there, the reality is we can't. And so I realized that a healthy approach is to step back, to see where God is working. And that's what we saw with Christian Heritage. God was already at work in this, again, program, Ministry of Families Together. God was already at work and could see very quickly of how we were lining up, and that we had the resources that we could give towards that. And beyond the financial, I'm talking about people resources, who are willing to, serve as host families, who are willing to be a part of this community, to come alongside of that, who are willing to be mentors, to walk alongside others in need. And so all of those things just started to line up with really the core passion of who we are, who God has made us to be. And so with that, I guess that's my answer to the question of, we just look for where God is at work, what he's doing, and where we can join and be a part of that.
I love that. And I mean, really, it's just an approach of, we're going to be patient. We don't have to be, I mean, Paul's like, hey, I try to be all things to all people, which is amazing, I think. But there's times where, like, I can't be all things to all people, and this church can't be all things to all people. I don't know how I'll have to ask them that question when I meet him. But I think that's what you're saying, is I get to take a step back. We get to take a step back as a community and think about, man, how in a way do we complete each other? How do we make each other better when we're working together? We like to say at Christian Heritage, like, God's people are the answer, not our organization. It's really God's people who are doing the work of ministry. We provide the framework and the systems and all that stuff. But, if we don't partner with people like you guys, it doesn't happen. And then people aren't supported and served, and those ministries can't happen. So go ahead. Go ahead.
I just one of my favorite passages of scripture is in Ephesians chapter 4, and it talks about the gifts that God gives to the church. He talks about, pastors and teachers, and he goes through this list, but then he talks about just life and ministry and how Christ is the head of all of that, but he uniquely gifts each of us.
Yep.
And that when we work together, when we partner together, in fact, it says when everyone does his or her own part,
Yep.
it says that the whole body then is healthy and growing and full of love.
Yep.
And that's what I love. And it goes beyond just the physical churches. It goes like the people are the church. And so we are meant to be community. And so God invites us into this with him, but then he invites us to really join with him where he is on mission when he is out doing these things. And I just think of what Jesus prayed in John 17, Father, may we all be one. May they be one. May we be one. And that oneness, that's about doing this together, being together.
And what I appreciate is like you answered that email from Brian Barrier, who's our church partnership manager. Like you answered that email, yes. Hey, I'm willing to take a step. Like, again, you could have said no, you could have ignored it. It's really easy. We get a million emails a day. But I think that is a huge part of partnering, is that I have to be willing to just take a step, take an initiative and say, I'm going to listen. I'm going to lean in. I don't know where this is going, but I'm going to trust one step at a time. And so I'm just grateful on behalf of CH that you and many other pastors in Lincoln and Omaha, like they say, yes, we'll meet. We're interested. We want to talk. And I think it does start there. Now, here's the other side of things is, you guys have been awesome. And we work with all different kinds of churches. I love being a part of an organization that works with so many different kinds of Christians, denominations, tribes, networks. How would you encourage a ministry leader who's maybe intimidated with partnering? Maybe they are worried about alignment or particular doctrinal issues, or maybe Christian heritage isn't, maybe you don't focus on the things we focus. You're too broad in your beliefs. How do you handle those kinds of things personally? How does Messiah handle them? And then just what encouragements would you give to pastors who are thinking about it from that sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's not always an easy question either.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't mean to open up a can of worms, but it could be for some people, I think.
No, I'm just going to speak from a very honest place.
Yep.
To, I understand the sensitivity, and never should anyone compromise like their doctrine or beliefs or any of those things. But I've learned that, we have to step back sometimes, not to compromise, but the things that maybe aren't the simplest things of what Jesus, said and what we believe as Christians. Because on this side of heaven, there's going to be things that sometimes, cause separation and such. But what are we united on? And
Yep.
Jesus truly is the one who unites us together. And so I've learned that it's important to be willing to, and you touched on it earlier, to listen to the stories that are being communicated, but then listen also to where God is leading, to where the Spirit is prompting, and to be willing to follow that. And and that's would be my encouragement, to
good.
know that it was never God's plan to have, all these different denominations and such. That's not that's not what heaven is gonna be either. And I don't think that's what he wants here. Now, again, Jesus' prayer was, let us be one. And so to be respectful of others, but I think you touched on it. The biggest thing is when those opportunities come, to just listen, and then listen to God. God, where are you leading me in this? And it is, as I shared earlier, it's who God has made me to be. But I am just a big believer in our day and age today, especially. And as we move forward, considering all the needs and all the brokenness around us, there needs to be more working together for the sake of the gospel. And so there's too many other things working against what God is trying to do. And so it's important for us as Christians to be willing to maybe set aside some of those things that cause a little bit of, separation between us and realize where can we be united together.
Yep. And I think it's so important when it comes to, the topic of human flourishing. Like we're, working for the good of people in our city who are struggling. The net for me, I mean, I'm speaking personally now, the net for me gets a little broader in terms of who I partner with. Like we're trying to furnish somebody's apartment. We're trying to get a kid who's safe, or to get a kid to be safe, to find a home for them, to find a mentor for a parent. And so, while I may not be a part of a particular denomination, like you said, I just love it. You're like, what are those essential things? We love Jesus. We believe in Jesus. We believe in the scriptures. You might be Baptist, you might be Lutheran, you might be Methodist, but we are all following Jesus, and we want to work together for the good of the people in our city. And so that's our passion at CH. And I love that you guys, you're with us in that. Last thing I'll ask, Dustin, I didn't prep you for this, but you're a little bit removed from families together in terms of the, on the ground work, but just what have you heard from people in your church as they've talked about being a part of that ministry?
One of the things that we keep trying to do a better job of is telling the story of where God is at work. All of our meetings here, a part of our church and school, we always begin with a praise God. So before we talk about anything else, we go around the table and where is somewhere you've seen God at work in your life, in your family, in the community, in your ministry. Let's praise God for that. And there have been multiple times where, we hear about the stories of what Christian Heritage and Family Together is doing. And to see our own families here at Messiah who have opened their home and welcomed in children to be a part of that, to provide a safe place to care for them.
Yeah.
And then to see the larger community come alongside of them and helping with meals, with transportation, with just, other of these needs that come about. And then to hear others stand up and say, in trying to be a blessing to others, what God is doing is he's blessing them through the midst of that too.
Yep.
And I think that's just one of the great things that God is able to do. We who are blessed, we get to be a blessing to others, and then God blesses us through that as well. And so just so thankful for the opportunity that Families Together, Christian Heritage has provided us to do that.
I love it. Great. Well, Dustin, we'll wrap up there. Thanks for your time, giving it up on a Friday here. And just, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate you, Bethany and the other staff at Messiah who honestly, you guys devote time to make this ministry happen. And people show up. And so we're grateful.
Yeah, we're thankful too. And looking forward to, we're partnering together on a little Christmas celebration coming up here too. And so looking forward to that opportunity and all the things that God has in store moving forward.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us, Dustin. And for all you listening, we appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time.